Welcome to Consultation on Conscience 2017. I'm Rabbi Jonah Pesner, and I have the great honor and privilege as serving as your director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism and the senior vice president of the Union for Reform Judaism, and we are so glad that you have shown up here in Washington, D.C. to help us confront the fierce urgency of now. Thank you all for coming from near and from far, helping to make this a record-setting consultation. Not only is it the biggest consultation in the history of the Reformed Jewish movement, it more than doubled the last ever biggest consultation. So celebrate your leadership and your presence. Look around the room, the people near you, and you will see the faces of the most dynamic, energized, inspired, and committed social justice warriors of Reform Judaism. Celebrate your leadership, justice warriors. The next 2.5 days will be an opportunity to learn, to be inspired, to see old friends, and to make new ones. We will honor our beloved Lynn Landsberg. Where are you, Rabbi Lynn Landsberg? We will celebrate the great, tireless champion, Anat Hoffman. Is Anat in the room? Is Anat here? All right, well, when she comes in, give her a big hug from me. And celebrating 100 Litaken seminars, Rabbi Michael Namath. Rabbi Namath, where are you? Oh, right, Rabbi Michael Namath. We will strategize together as we join hands in commitment to confront the fierce urgency of now. For Dr. King taught us, tomorrow is today, and we must face what? The fierce urgency of now. Across North America, we share a sense of vulnerability, a new sense of vulnerability. We feel the rapidly changing climate. Ironic that Earth Day and the People's Climate March happened on a ridiculously hot day in April. We hear of the demonization of immigrants, we, the descendants of immigrants. We see refugees turned away at our borders. We witness our fellow citizens unjustly denied the right to vote. We are pained by transgender individuals who are unable to live with authenticity. We fear the rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We experience the assault on women's reproductive autonomy and rights. We worry about people of color who continue to bear the weight of a crushing mass incarceration and broken criminal justice system. We are the people who are to be for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. That category of people that the rabbis considered the most vulnerable among us. And yet we know we have power. There is power in this room. There is power in our faith. There is power among our congregations and institutions. There is power in the Reformed Jewish movement, the largest and most diverse in Jewish life. And there is power in the broader movement of social justice across lines of race and class and faith and difference that we are a part of. And so we join together in this sacred community of purpose to fight for the world that we want, a world in which all people experience wholeness and justice and compassion. The fierce urgency of this moment is clear, but together we can confront that urgency with action. I want to introduce you to 3 beloved colleagues whose personal stories reflect the urgency of now with personal resonance. April Baskin is the Vice President of Audacious Hospitality for the Union for Reform Judaism. Rabbi Mona Alfie is the Senior Rabbi of Congregation B'nai Israel in Sacramento, California. And Rabbi Larry Bach is the Senior Rabbi of Judea Reform Congregation in Durham, and they join me on the stage to bear witness in this moment. Let's celebrate these great leaders.
Good afternoon, Consultation on Conscience.
Good afternoon.
As URJ's Vice President of Audacious Hospitality, my team and I work every day to ensure that our movement and our congregations and communities are welcoming and inclusive of all within our midst and within our broader Jewish community. I am fully committed to this work, and I am also deeply committed to the work of racial justice. Because as long as my one-day future son has the possibility of being killed on the way to or from religious school, I cannot simply focus on audacious hospitality. As long as my younger brother and my significant other are 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than their white counterparts, I cannot rest. As a movement and as a broader community, it is critically important that our religious schools and our camps and our synagogues and congregations are welcoming of all, and also that we work to ensure racial justice and the sacred humanity of all in this wonderful North America.
I am the daughter of an Iranian immigrant. And when I was 10 years old, I sat glued to the television as I watched in fear as I saw a revolution unfold on my television screen. And I wondered if I would ever see my aunts or my uncles or my cousins again. I will never forget the feelings of relief and gratitude when they finally arrived safely in Los Angeles and my family felt whole. But I also remember the anti-immigrant rhetoric and hatred and vitriol that greeted them when they came here looking for safety. But my family's story is not unique. Nearly every Jew in the United States and Canada holds in their family history a story of departure from a country which at best had far too few economic opportunities, and at worst, relentless persecution, and followed by a hopeful arrival in this land of opportunity and freedom. Jews know all too well the horror of being rounded up and carted off because of our identities, being declared illegal, and families separated and dispersed. My synagogue, Congregation B'nai Israel of Sacramento, joined a sanctuary network as part of our efforts to stand for desperately needed immigrant justice.
As a North Carolinian and as the father of a transgender son, I was horrified when HB 2, the so-called bathroom bill, became law. Sheer and I happened to be listening in the car together last May when Attorney General Lynch spoke about the role her Justice Department would play in opposing HB 2. This is what she said: "No matter how isolated or scared you may feel today, the Department of Justice and the entire Obama administration wants you to know that we see you, we stand with you, and we will do everything we can to protect you going forward." My son no longer has a champion at Justice or in the White House, but he does have a champion in the reform movement, which is stepping up to see transgender people, stand with them, and do everything we can to protect them going forward.
Thank you to our courageous leaders who give forth and voice and testimony to the vulnerability of those among us. But the testimonies that you just heard from these courageous leaders are not unique. There are 800 of you in this room. Each one of you is bearing witness. Each one of you has a story. Every one of you is here because you've shown up as part of a people that is committed to amplify the voice of the most vulnerable, to be the community of justice that we yearn to be, and create the world that we know it should be. You've also shown up not only to make your voice be heard in Washington, but to bring your story and your passion and your commitment back home to lead this work all across North America and throughout the world. So when we hear these voices, the stories of our people and the most vulnerable, that touch the root of our soul, the deep emotional place, where do we turn to find both comfort and inspiration for action? For thousands of years, we Jews have turned to our sacred texts and traditions, to our Torah, to our biblical text, and to the wisdom of our rabbis to be inspired, to be guided, and to ground our deeply held beliefs in our shared textual values. And so let's take a moment not only to reflect on our Torah and the Torah portion that we will study this week from Parashat Kedoshim, but let's model the building of relationships that we know it will take to recovenant and build a community together by not only reading our text and studying our text, by connecting with one another. So we hear the voice of our tradition. As God spoke to Moses saying, "Speak to the whole Israelite community, Kedoshim tehiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem." Be holy, God says, because I am holy. Now note, Kedoshim tehiyu is written in the plural. God is not speaking to the individual. God is speaking to the collective. And just a few verses later, we hear in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You shall love your fellow as yourself. Not tolerate, not accept, but love. So we're going to take some time in sacred conversation with one another to remind ourselves that we're not some partisan political party. We don't just make up random public policy positions. We root this work deeply in thousands of years of the Jewish textual tradition and our understanding of our divine calling. We're going to take a few moments to turn to the person or people sitting with us and have a conversation and ask two key questions. And in answering these questions, also share our story of why. What is the story of vulnerability that we experience during this urgency of now that has brought us to this place? And in being in this space and in understanding that vulnerability, what does it mean that the text is teaching us to be holy, but speaking to us in the plural? What does it mean to be a holy people? And why is God calling to us as the collective? And second, what does it actually mean that we are commanded to love our fellow? We're going to take about 10 or 15 minutes in Chavruta, and then I will call us back to order. Enjoy. Otherwise, it just grows up. Welcome back. Try and find a way to bring your sacred conversation to a close. We'll continue these conversations for the next 3 days. Anybody want to shout out an answer? Let's hear shh. Why does the text tell us to be holy? Well, first of all, what did people say about holiness? You got to be real. I see that there are mics. Are these mics live? So if you want to share a reason why, I know I'm calling an audible with my RAC staff team. I'm going to drive them crazy here. Graham, help me out here. Anybody want to share a reflection on what does it mean to be called a holy people and to be told to be holy? There's a mic there. We'll get it to you. Sophie's going to go over with the mic. She didn't even want me to say her name. She's amazing, as are all the RAC staff. Anyone a reflection on what does it mean to be holy? Rabbi David Cohen, don't be so excited to respond. You're sitting on the aisle. Such a shy group. And why is it plural? Yeah, thank you. Introduce yourselves as well. Just make sure the mic on the right, on your left, my right, is hot. Rabbi Cookie Olshine. I'm going to repeat it, don't worry. I'm going to repeat it because it's hard to hear on the other side. They're working on the mics.
I don't think about it in terms of being holy, I think about it in terms of doing holy.
Okay, so Rabbi Cookie Olshine says it's not about being holy, it's about doing holy. Very good. Alan Warshaw, real loud, I'll repeat it, don't worry. Wonderful. So we don't use the word holy very often in our secular world, but Alan is arguing it's God's way of saying to be set apart, to be kadosh, kadoshim, is to actually follow a path of doing the right thing. Consequently, it's not just about our individual behavior. It isn't ata kadosh, you are holy, but rather kadoshim, in the plural tehiyu. What matters for us as a people is committing to do this as a collective. This is a perfect metaphor for us. We have shown up to be part of the Reformed Jewish movement's collective response to the fierce urgency of now. We want to be about something bigger than ourselves. We want to follow in God's paths to do the right thing as a collective. Yes, introduce yourself.
I'm from San Francisco Bay Area, following along on what Alan Warshaw said. My understanding is we make ourselves holy by doing the commandments.
Beautiful. So it's in the doing of the things that we actually become holy. Last thing, v'ahavta re'echa kamocha. In the list of commandments in this Torah portion that God gives us of the ways in which we can be holy, it peaks when we are told to love your fellow. Any thoughts? Commanded to love. Hello, my friend. Introduce yourself.
Gerson Scher from Washington, D.C.
The librarian of the Religious Action Center of Reformed Judaism, the volunteer librarian.
Thank you.
And a justice warrior.
Thank you. That passage to me is the essence of Judaism. It was to Rabbi Hillel, too, who told the stranger, that is the whole of the Torah. Go and learn it.
Beautiful.
And but love is a verb. And there's a great book saying that God is a verb, and it means to do. It means to love. And that's just not just a feeling. It's not just compassion toward your neighbor. It's not just a sentiment. It's acting it. It's reaching out. And it's listening. And it's learning. And trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and doing something about it.
Beautiful. We are in sacred obligation to one another, not just to put up with each other, to tolerate each other, to accept each other, but to love one another with all the obligations and the commitments that to be in a community that is holy, a community of love means. That means that if we're standing there at Sinai in that covenant together, loving one another, that when one of us is vulnerable, all of us are vulnerable. We are all refugees. We are all immigrants. We are all transgender. We are all people of color. We are all low income and high income. We are all people who are struggling with the urgency of now. Because if one of us are vulnerable, all of us are vulnerable. And so this consultation, we come together to re-covenant with one another, to stand again at Sinai together, to hear the stories and the testimonies, the urgency, the vulnerability, and to commit to fight for the world that we want, so that when we go up to Capitol Hill on Tuesday and we make our voices heard, those people who are accountable to us, elected officials who represent us, hear the values of our thousands of years of Jewish tradition and the voices of all of us in unity, the most vulnerable among us and all of us together, crying out for a world of wholeness, justice, and compassion. And being in that covenantal community of love means that we take it home with us, that we think about our congregation, our community, our institution, our constituency, the relationships that we established here, the skills, the training, the tools, the power that we gained by being in this 800-person collective and the thousands more who are watching on Facebook Live, the power of this room, the power of those not in this room but watching with us, and the power of our movement to go home and to organize and mobilize and advocate in our city halls and our school districts and our community boards and congressional offices, in our mayor's offices, in our governor's offices, to make sure that we are the force for change and justice that will transform communities and change lives. But this is not new for us. As we, the Jewish people, thousands of years ago, cast off the yoke of oppression and marched forth from the bondage of Egypt, and as we, more than 50 years ago, marched for civil rights and social justice here in Washington and across the United States and North America, so too, even in the last 2 years, we continue to commit and recommit. How many of you were with us 2 years ago at the last consultation on conscience? So many of you heard the call when we committed as a Reformed Jewish movement to have an impact on racial bias and inequality in America. How many of you were part of the movement to reflect, relate, reform around racial justice in America? How many of you were part of carrying the Torah from Selma to Washington, 1,000 miles, when the NAACP called us and we showed up? The Torah, that symbol of righteousness, the principles of our scripture, informing the ongoing commitment that we share to end racial bias and all inequality for all people, carried by rabbis and cantors and lay leaders together in the historic partnership that was reinvigorated with the NAACP. And we will hear from President Cornell William Brooks tomorrow as part of our ongoing partnership with NAACP. But as you knew, and as we know, it is not enough to march. We've been marching a lot lately, haven't we, folks? Is marching enough? No, and it's good that we made our buttons. We do justice and we love mercy and we march proudly. But then when we're done marching, we organize, mobilize, and advocate and speak truth to power and make real change. And the real change happened in your congregations and communities across our countries and the world when you did the deep dive to reflect on the actual inequities and racial disparities in housing and education and criminal justice. Those of you who worked hard to build sustainable, deep, lasting relationships locally across lines of difference, and who acted powerfully and effectively with those relationships in order to make change. And so last summer, we stepped up our game. How many of you participated in our election protection voter registration Nitzavim campaign? How many of you went into communities, whether it was Ohio or Georgia or other communities, and registered voters, had conversations, turned people out to vote, protected the polls? Let's celebrate your commitment to march and then to actually do the work of justice. We have been strengthened by the work in every local community, in every state, across our movement. How much the paradigm of this work. Where are our friends from California? They came in on the red eye. Let's celebrate our activists from California. The great untold story of this election is that our leaders in California actually won. You won Proposition 57. Your work means that for thousands and thousands of young people, they will not get caught up in the racist juvenile detention system. The sentencing laws were actually changed. A commitment has been made to rehabilitation of nonviolent offenders. That's what happens when we get organized and when we forge the relationships across lines of difference. And it isn't just California. Where are you, New York? Where's my New York? How many of you were at Central Synagogue a few weeks ago when we won a victory to raise the age? 1,200 people packed Central Synagogue from dozens and dozens of Reformed Jewish congregations, but not only Reformed synagogues, across lines of difference. Our allies showed up with us. And Governor Cuomo came, and we held him accountable and got him to commit to raise the age. New York was one of 2 states that has the age of 16 to treat children as adults in the criminal justice system. The other state, where's Rabbi Larry Bach? North Carolina. Together, we will transform California and New York and Texas and Illinois and Ohio and state after state. You will do the work to transform our communities and our states so that we can make this world the world that we know that it should be. And tomorrow, we are going to ask you to take this work going forward, continuing to build on a robust advocacy platform on a federal level, to continue, as we will always do, to walk the halls of Congress and to do in-district visits, to hold our Congress and our administration accountable. We will also ask you to recovenant with us, to give us more power, not only to have an influence in Washington, with Congress and the White House, but in community by community and state by state. We are going to ask you to recovenant with us in a Brit Olam. Everybody say Brit. Everybody say Olam. A Brit is a covenant. Many of us in the room may remember our own Brit that we once had when we entered into the covenant. No blood tomorrow, I swear. Just a piece of paper. Olam means world. Everybody say world. It is recovenanting for the world that we want, that world of wholeness and justice and compassion for all people. Everybody hold up your commitment card. It's sitting on your seat. We're giving it to you now so that you have the next day and a half to think about it, to study it, to talk about it with other members of the delegation if you came with a delegation from your own congregation or constituency, or to talk to other leaders who you meet here and connect with. Certainly to confer with members of the RAC staff or the Commission on Social Action. One side of it is the commitment that we will ask you to make to take this covenant home to your own constituency. and to challenge your constituency or your congregation to figure out the way in which you can covenant with us to be part of this campaign to bring about the world of wholeness and justice and compassion that we believe in. Kiddoshim Tihiyu, collectively, in the plural, that we will fight for together to be holy and live out the traditions and the values of the Jewish people. Undocumented immigrants, people of color, women, low-income people, Muslims, and many Jews feel uncertain about the future. So we need to recovenant and come together in a Brit Olam at this moment with a clarity of purpose and committed action. And so we will complement our federal advocacy work with new campaigns that any congregation or institution in our movement can advance on a local and state level as a complement to our federal work. Tomorrow we will kick off 3 specific campaigns. They relate to campaigns that you asked for in the last few months as you have called us and challenged us and asked the question, how can we help? What can we do? Our campaigns will seek to protect the rights of transgender students. They will seek to protect individuals who are at risk of deportation in the United States. Another campaign will continue our movement-wide effort to advance a criminal justice system that is reformed and to address systemic racism of mass incarceration in our ongoing commitment to addressing racial injustice. And with your commitment and your engagement, these 3 campaigns won't be the only campaigns. As we widen the number of leaders and the number of institutions that commit themselves to be part of the Brit Olam, we will spread our capacity to be able to take on more campaigns, protect more vulnerable populations, and stand together and once again recovenant at Sinai, just as our ancestors did. Kol adat b'nei Yisrael, all the community of Israel, Kiddoshim Tihiyu, to be a holy community. We will ask you to bring this Brit back and advance it through your leadership, through your stakeholders, and then in some weeks' time to hold yourselves accountable, to say, this is what my congregation, this is what my community is committing to doing. Talk to us, talk to one another over the next 24 hours. The trainings, the plenaries, the workshops are all geared towards helping build your capacity as leaders to be able to enter into this covenant with confidence. Just as our ancestors stood at Sinai, the covenant at Sinai was not only for our ancestors, it was given, nitzavim, by those who stood that day and all those who nitzavim, who stood every day throughout Jewish history. And so be thinking about the people back in your home congregations who you want to bring into this space, who you want to have standing and covenanting with us. Because we know of the power of our faith and the power of our people. We can and we will transform the world. The 800 in the room, the thousands on Facebook Live, and the nearly 2 million souls across North America who call themselves Reform Jews. Reform Judaism, the largest and most diverse movement in Jewish life. We are here at this conference representing 38 states and provinces. We are here in this common Jewish expression of our values. We enter the world in a place that we know can be full of compassion and wholeness and justice. So let's celebrate all of you who have actually shown up to enter into the Brit and into the covenant, and those who have led us and will lead us. Will the members of the Commission on Social Action of Reform Judaism, will you all please stand? The members of the Commission on Social Action have stepped up in unprecedented ways in the face of the urgency of now, as we have asked them not only to help us set policy, not only to strategize, but to take leadership, to challenge their own congregations and congregations across our movement, to challenge their constituencies, to step up and lean into this moment. And we could not do this work without the Commission. nor could we do it without our young people. Could the high school students who are in the room please stand? You are not our future leaders, you are our current leaders, and we need you to bring Nifty and your peers and your networks into this fight. Where are my college students? We have some college students in the room. Stand up. You also are not our future, you are our present. I know, it's finals week, and it's like, classes tomorrow and all of that, but nonetheless, get on Facebook right now, get on Facebook Live, make sure your friends are with us, because we need you in this fight. Our morning started with the most sacred gathering, as together across the street, the women of Reformed Judaism kicked off our work with an assembly. Where are you, WRJ? Will you please stand? Stand up. Stand up, WRJ. We are counting on you to organize WRJ chapters across North America and across our movement to get into this fight. Who here is a youth professional? Well, are there youth professionals, educators? Do we have any reformers? Stand up if you're an educator or a youth professional. We need you in this fight. And we need you to bring along your constituency, all the educators and youth professionals of our movement, to bring along not just the other educators and not just the people you educate, but our institutions and our congregations. Where would we be in our fight for justice without song? As the psalm teaches, sing out for justice and mercy. Where are our cantors? Stand up, cantors. There are more cantors at this consultation on conscience than ever in the history of the Religious Action Center of Reformed Judaism. Everybody say 144. That's how many rabbis showed up at our consultation on conscience. Stand up! Stand up! Now, we didn't get the 200 rabbis that marched with the Torah, but 144 is not bad. As Cornell William Brooks would say, that means like 14.4% of the entire rabbinic population of our movement showed up for justice. What does that say about us? We are strong. If you are a leader of our state advocacy work in California, in New York, in New Jersey, in Georgia, Tzedek, Georgia, Reformed Jewish Voice of New York, Reformed Jewish Voice of New Jersey, Reformed California, will you stand up and be recognized? We are growing in our state capacity. We are launching in Ohio. We are launching in Illinois. We are launching in Texas. We know, is it Illinois or Texas? We love you, where's Texas? All right, we need you, Texas. We are so proud to be a joint instrumentality of the Union for Reformed Judaism and the Central Conference of American Rabbis. So let's recognize the presence of the president of the URJ and our board chair, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, and Daryl Messinger. There's Rick, and Daryl is there. And Steve Fox, the chief executive of the CCAR, Rabbi Steve Fox, and Rabbi David Stern, the president of the CCAR. And let's celebrate that in addition to there are more of everybody here at this consultation. There are more members of the URJ staff that I am privileged to serve on as part of the staff team than on any other. Could all the members of the URJ staff team that are here please stand? Barbara Seidel, April Baskin. And all the members of the North American board of the URJ, will you stand? Will all of the staff and the board of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, will you stand? Now, the most important group that's here, will all of the people who have come for their first consultation on conscience, will you stand up? What a sight! What a sight! Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Now, many of you heard the call from Rabbi Michael Namath, who said, it's great to come to consultation alone, but we want you to come as a team, as a delegation, so that you have power and strength when you go back home to take this to your board and to your congregation and demand that we act for justice as a congregation. So if you are here with a delegation of 10 or more, if you have a minion, will you stand up and be recognized? Amazing. If you have 5 or more in your delegation, will you stand up? 5 or more. If you have 3 or more in your delegation, will you stand up? Amazing. One last acknowledgement, and then we will turn to the sacred work that you all showed up for. The professional staff. Now, before I introduce and celebrate the professional staff of the Religious Action Center, I want to acknowledge the hardworking housekeepers, support system, and the folks that work at this hotel. They are going to be making our beds. They are going to be cleaning our toilets. And if you know anything about the hospitality industry, in the DMV, which does not mean the Department of Motor Vehicles, which I learned, it means the District, Maryland, and Virginia, many of the staff that work at these hotels are feeling the fierce urgency of now more than anyone. Many folks working in these hotels are low income. Many are undocumented. So as you talk to the staff that is taking care of us, please thank them for their service. And I also want to acknowledge and recognize that we live in a time where among the populations that feel most vulnerable, we, the Jewish people, whose Jewish community centers and day schools and even synagogues have become once again targets. And so you may have noticed law enforcement greeting you at the front. They'll be with us as you pass them because they've stepped up to put their lives on the line to protect us. Will you thank and celebrate them as well? And so as I invite now the staff of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism to come forward and join me on the stage, you can clap for them as they come up. They are the very best. Now, I got to tell you, okay, come on up. I can only say, the only way I can describe for you how awesome this team is by reliving a memory that happened on the consultation stage not 2 years ago when Ambassador David Saperstein, in installing me as the new director of the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism, who had only Rabbi Rick Jacobs to stand between us. You remember this, right, Rick? Rabbi Saperstein was holding the Torah. He was having trouble letting go. He's still having trouble letting go. But as he handed me the Torah, he said the words, "I now place into your hands the very best staff you could ask for." And he was right. And so, finally, before we conclude, I would like to introduce you to the newest member of the RAC staff team, Ambassador Rabbi David Saperstein.